Jai Baba. None dies and none knows to die. The rare one who knows to die is never born again. Meher Baba. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Thanks to beloved Baba and Jai Baba to all of you. We are reading session number 17 and perhaps the last session in the series of Meher Baba on death. We are reading from Listen Humanity, page number 108.
The infinite poise of consciousness in realization should not be confused with the semblance of sanskaric equilibration that is approached by the limited ego mind in discarnate life in the hell or heaven state. Such ineffable poise is unapproachable by the full consciousness in man as long as it remains clouded by the slightest traces of the limiting ego mind.
Okay, we have seen in the earlier sessions that real death is the death of the limitation, death of the mind, death of the separation, and we should all aim at, we should all strive for that death, where we never are born again. And the name of this game is to come to an equal balance of sanskaras, quantitatively and qualitatively. Then it's all over. They cancel each other. And Baba says that in the state of heaven or hell, which are acute mental experiences, not locales or place, it comes to a near balance, but it is never balanced. It always tilts on one side and then you take a rebirth. So here Baba says, the infinite poise of consciousness in realization. In God realization, there is absolute poise, there are no samskaras. Should not be confused with the semblance of sanskaric equilibration. Yani it is a semblance, it is as if, but it's not the real. That is approached by the limited ego mind in discarnate life without the body, in the hell or heaven state. Such ineffable poise, which means indescribable poise, is unapproachable by the full consciousness in man as long as it remains clouded by the slightest traces of the limited ego mind. In short, what Baba is trying to say, that in an incarnate life, it is well nigh impossible to come to the exact poise or exact equilibrium of samskaras, the so-called good and bad. So, qualitatively and quantitatively, it is not possible.
At the time of taking on a new physical body, the good and the bad sanskaras of the individual are almost in balance. However, there is always a slight ascendance at this time of either the good or bad sanskaras. They are never in perfect balance, nor do they in any manner overlap or cancel one another. Complete poise can exist only when the two opposite classes of sanskaras are so qualitatively and quantitatively opposed that they exactly cancel one another.
Now, if you read our earlier sessions, I don't want to repeat them. As I said, that there is, at the time of death, there is always a preponderance of one type of samskaras, either the so-called good or so-called bad. And as we experience the state of heaven or hell, we are reducing, utilizing, expanding, spending those samskaras, as a result of which we come to a near balance, but it is never balanced. Sometimes, it is at this level, or sometimes it flips on to the other level. So Baba says, at the time of taking on a new physical body, the good and the bad samskaras of the individuals are almost in balance, because that is the time when you take another birth. Every birth is an opportunity to balance, and every death again is an opportunity to experience all that you have experienced in incarnate form and try to learn from it and get going. However, there is always a slight ascendance, that would mean dominance, one is heavier, at this time of either the good or bad samskaras. They are never in perfect balance, nor do they in any manner overlap or cancel one another. It does not overlap or cancel one another. Complete poise can exist only when the two opposite classes of samskaras are so qualitatively and quantitatively opposed that they cancel one another. Exactly cancel one another. But that's never a case. It has, according to me, never happens unless and until there is an active help and participation of a living perfect master in our life, or the avatar who's the eternal living perfect master.
When opposite sanskaras are not only equal in strength, but are also in exact qualitative opposition, they cancel each other and can no longer act as semi-automatic subjective propelling forces, but are transmuted into consummate understanding that is free from opposing reactions to life. This is the state of liberation.
So here Baba says, the state of liberation is when qualitatively and quantitatively they cancel each other. There is no predominance of one against the other. Here Baba says, when opposite samskaras are not only equal in strength, but are also in exact qualitative opposition, they cancel each other and can no longer act as semi-automatic subjective propelling forces. In other words, what propels us to wake up in the morning? The samskaras. What propels us to take this action or that action? The samskaras. Samskaras are nothing but habit patterns, tendencies, that we do it. So these are all, in spite of the fact that we decide to do a certain thing, we end up doing something else. So what is propelling? So Baba says, when there is no semi-automatic subjective propelling forces, but are transmuted. Transmuted would mean changed in the nature and in the form. Transmuted into consummate understanding. That means perfect in details, in every details understanding that is free from that is free from opposing reactions to life. This is the state of liberation, which is again, later on Baba says that is not easily possible with human effort. The grace of the master is always required.
The seeming balance that is approximated by the individual before each birth may be compared to a tug of war in which opposite forces are active, although neither may predominate. The matching of forces then has only to be slightly disturbed, and the entire situation becomes subject to change. In the same manner, the pseudo-poise of sanskaras present at the time of birth has only to be slightly disturbed in order to imprint the sanskaric pattern for the individual life.
A very superb example, Baba says, that if there are two teams playing tug of war and both are equally strong, there is no preponderance, there is a state of static, there is no movement. So it may appear as if that they have cancelled each other. But this is just a pseudo balance. It is not actually. The moment you slightly change something, say add one person to another team, or as we used to do in school days, tickle somebody. So when you tickle, you do this, that means that team will be a little less strong and the other team will pull you up. So Baba gives an example that the seeming balance, it is seeming, it's not real balance, that is approximated by the individual before each birth. That means before each birth, there is a seeming balance of samskaras, may be compared to a tug of war in which opposite forces are active. Although neither may predominate, the matching of forces then has only to be slightly disturbed and the entire situation becomes subject to change. In the same manner, the pseudo-poise, pseudo not genuine, fake,
False.
make-believe, false. The pseudo-poise of sanskaras present at the time of birth has only to be slightly disturbed in order to imprint the sanskaric pattern for the individual life. That means slight change in that pattern. It could be anything. It could be, I don't know, I'm just assuming that mummy, shouting at the child, or whatever, come on, have milk, or that any change, that pseudo poise will be disturbed, and the entire sanskaric pattern would be downloaded on the consciousness, and then you start the swinging immediately.
In the state of realization, the opposite types of sanskaras interpenetrate each other in such a manner that they cease to exist as opposing forces. The resultant is not a state of sanskaric tension, but a state of complete internal neutralization in which the sanskaras have ceased to exist as propulsive elements. This is not a mere state of exact mathematical equalization of opposites, but a state beyond the opposites of true poise, rooted in unbroken consciousness of infinite unity.
So now here Baba says, in the state of realization, God realization, where we say that there are no samskaras. When we say no samskaras, Baba is explaining that each type of samskara so interpenetrate each other that they equalize and balance, balance each other in such a manner that there are no samskaras. That is the state of realization. In the state of realization, the opposite types of samskaras interpenetrate each other in such a manner then they cease to exist as opposing forces. The resultant is not a state of sanskaric tension, but a state of complete internal neutralization in which the samskars have ceased to exist as propulsive element. Propulsive is something which is propelling, driving, pushing, because the samskaras are the one which are always propelling us. So in a state of realization, self-realization, God realization, they cease to be the propelling force.
This is not a state of mere.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is not a mere state of exact mathematical equalization of opposites, but a state beyond the opposite, of true poise rooted in unbroken consciousness of infinite unity. So what is the consciousness? The consciousness of a realized soul is of infinite unity. There is only one, and that is me. That he is one with each and every one and each and everything.
During the entire long period preceding realization, the mind acts in each single circumstance according to the dictates of the preponderant sanskaras. As in a tug of war, there is movement in the direction of the greater pull, but that motion represents only a small proportion of the total energy spent, for most of it was used up in the opposition of forces.
Now, unless you read the earlier sessions, it would maybe a little difficult to grasp. Here what Baba is saying, that in a play of tug of war, it's tight, as we said, but supposing after a certain while it drags on in one direction. So that is not the totality of the force, because it is being counterbalanced by the other force. So that is not a totality. Here Baba says, see now I'll read this, what Baba is trying to convey. During the entire long period preceding realization, that means what we are going through right now, preceding realization, the mind acts in each single circumstance according to the dictates of the preponderant samskaras. The samskaras influence the mind thinks, the so-called heart feels, and then the body puts it into action. So we are all governed by the samskaras. Samskaras are the supreme, the chairman. As in a tug of war. Tug of war, what happens? There is movement in the direction of the greater pull. When there's a greater pull. But that motion represents only a small portion of the
Proportion.
total energy spent, for most of it was used up in the opposition of forces. That means that you are supposing you are putting, let us say, 100 pressure, right? But you are moving only 5 because 95 was balanced on the other side. You see, so that is not the complete. Where Baba says here, but that motion represents only a small portion of the total. Small proportion of the total energy spent. For most of it was used up in the opposition of forces. So here what Baba is trying to explain to us is the play of the Sanskaras, the so-called good Sanskaras and the bad Sanskaras, how they play up in our life.
In realization, there is an entire disappearance or cancellation of the sanskaras, such as would occur in a tug of war when the opposing parties finished the game and stopped pulling in opposite directions.
So there is no now pull in any direction. Once you finish the game, you just put down the rope and you are okay. So in the same way, in realization, there is no such tug of war, there is no nothing, it's all over, it's all finished. The game is over.
On the other hand, in near equalization of sanskaric tension, there is only a temporary arrest of express activity. Then, when some new or outside factor upsets this equilibrium, reactions occur which show that the situation had been quite not because of lack of propelling forces, but rather because they had temporarily cancelled one another. There's an asterisk. This analysis has the greatest possible practical significance in considering the adjustment of the individual to his environment. It often happens that balancing forces in environment tend to bring a very difficult personal situation into temporary equilibrium. At this point, the individual tends to regard the situation as solved because he is no longer aware of any intense localized pressure. However, eventually, those balancing forces will shift, and once more, the situation will seem to fly out of control. This is usually very discouraging because the sequence may be repeated several times without apparent improvement. The individual then often asks himself why he should continue to try, as he never seems to find a lasting solution to his problems. But the poise originally established was due only to a happy combination of forces, sanskaras, that almost cancelled each other. Final release comes as the basic motivating forces are dissolved and resorbed in the process of ultimate realization. This may seem a discouragingly remote solution to the pressing problem of the moment, but in such a final solution, the answer is complete and the poise absolute, because the forces themselves have been annihilated and lost.
Now, this is a little deep in the sense we are creatures with internal forces, which are our thoughts and samskaras, and external forces, which is the environment, the situations, the happenings, the events, the occurrences that happen. And that puts us in imbalance. So I'll just, in a nutshell, I'm just trying to explain. There is a possibility, now for example, I am in Dubai, but I'm fed up, so I don't like that life, I'm just saying it, don't feel otherwise. So I want to go and settle down in India. So when I come to India, so that means the environment has changed. Over there, just example, don't take it personal. Over there, I used to get in a fit, and I used to get angry, and I used to get, unhappy about certain situations. But now that I have changed the environment, there is an apparent pseudo poise, So now you feel that you are much settled down. But sometimes, something triggers, and that trigger again brings out what is there inside of you, and you feel that I have been trying not to get angry, or I have been trying not to be discouraged, or I have been trying not to be lusty, or I have been trying not to be greedy, But it just keeps changing. Now I am practicing, let's say, as somebody said yesterday, I have reduced my portion of eating. So that way I have become a little thin. I have not become, somebody said this. So it's very fine. There is a semblance of poise. But sometimes, you go to a party, you meet some friends and tell friends, what are you doing? After all, life is meant to be enjoyed. What nonsense you are doing, I have stopped drinking. There's a joke. I said, what do you mean you stopped drinking? No, I am not drinking anymore. I said, why? To know I want to live a long life. I said, all your friends are drinking. You are not drinking. Now we will all go off by say 55, 60, 65. You alone will live for 70, 75 years. There are no friends to take care of you, to talk to you. And when you will die, who will lift you? As long as we are there, let us. What I'm trying to say is, this kind of effort is there, and it's a pseudo tranquility for a certain time. That's what Baba is trying to explain, or rather, the editor is saying this way, Don Stephen, that it keeps on imbalancing all the time. You make an effort, you feel that yes, it's working very well. Let it be anything. But then something changes, and then again you are back to square one. And then we tell ourselves, why should I even try? Because I have tried so many times. That's what Baba is saying here. The individual then often asks himself, why should you continue to try, as he never seems to find a lasting solution to his problems? So in other words, it is the samskara. What I understand in my limited understanding is that we have to understand our samskaras or tendencies or habit patterns or something that we are accustomed to doing all the time, and self-reflect, my understanding, whether this particular thought, feeling, emotion or action, whether it is serving me, whether it is helpful to me, or it is of disservice to me. And if it is of disservice to me, then I talk to myself, talk to my own samskaras and mind, telling, why would I encourage you? Because it is not serving me. I have been doing this in the hope that you will go away, but you are not going away. So now so in other words, you have to go, I understand, my understanding, to the root of the problem and not superfluously do anything. When you do something superfluously, it keeps on recurring. And when it keeps on recurring, it means we have not gone to the core of the issue or core of the problem. Yeah. Mike. No, I'll tell you why. No, it's okay. It's okay. Because people on the live. Yeah, go ahead.
Jai Baba. Just for my better understanding on this, you gave a very relevant example of anger. Like, me as an individual, I've been working on it, and there are a lot of times I fail and then I keep trying. So what is the limit? As you said, there is no limit to it, but keep trying, and then you reach a point where you almost give up, and again he pulls you back and then you give up. But how to continue it? Basically, if any habit for that person, which is not beneficial for
Maybe
you.
we can talk one-on-one that way in great details, that will come. But
Okay.
there's a definition of an idiot. I'm not telling you that. The definition of an idiot is the one who keeps who keeps doing the same thing over and over again and expects a different result. So the very fact that you have been trying, but it has not, that means you have to try something else. You have to try in some other manner, in some other way, that we can talk, because we need to probe deep into it. Because in discourses, Baba says that anger is nothing but when your desires are blocked. So the root culprit is the desire. You see, that you want a certain thing to happen in a certain way because that is the right way to do or happen. And it doesn't happen that way. Somebody behaves in a certain manner, something happens in a certain manner, and you see this is not the right way. But in reality, there is no right way, there is no wrong way, there is no the way. It is just that somebody is not difficult, but somebody is different. And that somebody is different because somebody is wired differently, which means somebody's samskaric mold is such that the person cannot but be that. And once we accept that, not that we will, once we accept it, it becomes easy for us to then modulate yourself as well as the other person. But the problem is we don't accept. We say that this was difficult, that person is difficult, it's very difficult to handle and all that. But we don't say that he is different and she is different. We are all wired differently. Anyway, I can give an example. The example is, let's say, electricity. Electricity is the power, right? But the same electricity goes in the fan and gives us hawa, it goes in the light and gives us light, goes in the microwave and cooks food for us, goes in the television and shows us a beautiful movie or whatever it is. Electricity is the same. The swarup, roop, swa, I, self, is the same in every individual. But the swabhav is different. The swabhav is the manifestation based on the wiring behind the person. So I cannot expect microwave to show me a good movie. It's impossible. The swabhav of microwave is to cook, or the swabhav of the TV is to show me a film. I cannot. So in other words, we all are in essence, in the core, in the kernel, the same. Swarup, everybody is the same. But the swabhav is different because of the wiring of the samskaras. And because the equipment is wired in such a way, it cannot but do only that function. And so each one of us have got this different swabhav because of our own past karma. And it is very, I would say, almost impossible to change unless somebody really works at the core level, not at the superfluous level. Go deep down, whatever you call it meditation, you call it concentration, you call it hypnosis, whatever you call it. You go deep down and find out as to why is it that I am behaving in such a manner. Does it really call for such a outburst or something? And you say no, then we need to work on ourselves rather than changing the wiring of the other. That is one way of looking at it, but we can go deeper. All right, so have I explained?
Read it. No.
Which one?
In
The first journey. Oh, I'm sorry. Where am I? No, I am not reading this. This is done. Okay. I won't read the asterisk part because that we have done. Yeah. In realization, there is an entire disappearance or cancellation of the sanskaras such as would occur in a tug of war when the opposite parties finish the game and stop pulling. That we have done. So then, when some new or outside factor upsets this equilibrium, reactions occur which show that the situation had been quiet not because of lack of propelling forces, but rather because they had temporarily cancelled one another. Temporarily you have changed location, you have changed places, mother-in-law has gone home, now you are alone with your wife, or whatever it is, then the change situation. But that is temporary. The moment she comes back again, it will be upset. That way.
With the annulment of the sanskaras, the individual is freed permanently from all sanskaric determination. As a consequence, for the first time, the individual's life can express itself without latent or patent inhibitions, for it functions in the limitless understanding of truth.
Okay. With the annulment of the samskaras, that means completely it is annulled, so there is no question. The individual is freed permanently from the samskaric determination. Samskaric determination means the determined by samskaras, what actions you do. As a consequence, for the first time, the individual's life can express itself without latent or patent, obviously, or latent means not unmanifest, inhibitions, for it functions in the limitless understanding of the truth. So in other words, when all samskaras are cancelled, then that is where you experience aham brahmasmi, analhak, soham, God realization, self-realization.
Patent means obvious.
Patent is obvious.
This true.
Manifest or evident, yeah, obvious. Sorry, sir?
Take a break.
I don't mind. Yeah, okay.